The silence in the house wasn't peaceful. It was heavy. It was the kind of silence that had mass and weight, pressing down on your shoulders until you felt the need to stoop. I stood at the kitchen island, the granite cool under my forearms. I was 56 years old, and my hands looked it. They were the hands of a landscape architect, calloused in specific places from years of handling rough sketches, soil samples, and stone pavers. They were strong hands, capable hands, but tonight they were trembling just slightly as I chopped the bell peppers. Tap, tap, tap. The knife hit the cutting board with a rhythmic precision that usually calmed me. Cooking was the only time I felt in control of the chaos that had become my life over the last 2 years. Dead. The voice was quiet, almost apologetic. I turned to see Ethan standing in the doorway. At 14, he was in that awkward stage. All limbs and angles, hair falling into eyes that held too much worry for a boy his age. He was holding a sketchbook against his chest like a shield. "Hey, bud," I said, forcing a warmth into my voice that I didn't feel in my gut. "Hungry. I'm making that stir-fry you like. The one with the extra ginger." Ethan offered a small, tentative smile. He walked into the kitchen, avoiding the center of the room, sticking close to the counters. It was a habit he had developed recently, as if taking up space was an offense. "Is Mom home yet?" he asked. I glanced at the clock on the microwave. 7:15 p.m. She should be here any minute. "You know how traffic is coming from the city."
That was a lie.
We both knew it. Monica wasn't stuck in traffic. Monica was at happy hour with her networking group, or she was at the gym, or she was simply sitting in her car in the driveway, scrolling through Instagram, dreading the moment she had to walk through the front door and be a wife and mother. "I finished that drawing," Ethan said, sliding onto a bar stool. "The charcoal one. Of the old oak tree in the backyard. The one with the lightning scar." I asked, wiping my hands on a towel. "Let me see." He opened the book. The drawing was magnificent. It was dark, moody, and technically brilliant. He had captured the texture of the bark, the way the twisted branches seemed to reach for the sky in desperation. It was a drawing of something broken that was still standing. It felt like a portrait of me. "Ethan, this is incredible," I said softly. "The shading right here, that's professional level." His face lit up, a rare occurrence these days. "You think?" I was worried the perspective was. The front door slammed. The atmosphere in the kitchen shifted instantly. The air grew thin. Ethan closed his sketchbook immediately, sliding it off the counter and onto his lap, hiding it. My stomach tightened. The clicking of high heels on the hardwood floor grew louder. Rapid, aggressive clicks. Monica swept into the kitchen. At 44, she was undeniably beautiful, but it was a beauty that required immense maintenance and money. Her hair was perfectly highlighted, her skin glowed from expensive treatments, and her designer suit fit her like a second skin. But her eyes were hard. They swept over the kitchen, assessing, judging, and finding it wanting. "It smells like garlic in here," she said, wrinkling her nose. No greeting, no hello. "It's ginger," I corrected gently. "Stir, fry. I'm not hungry," she said, tossing her keys onto the granite counter with a clatter that made Ethan flinch. "I had a late lunch with Shelley." She walked to the fridge, opened it, and grabbed a bottle of sparkling water. She took a sip, her eyes finally landing on our son. She didn't look at his face, she looked at his shirt. "Ethan, is that a stain?" Ethan looked down at his gray t-shirt. There was a tiny smudge of charcoal on the hem. It's from art class. It washes out. It looks sloppy." Monica sighed, leaning against the counter, clearly exhausted by his mere existence. "We are going to the club for brunch on Sunday. Please tell me you have something decent to wear that isn't covered in dirt or paint." "I do, Mom," Ethan whispered. "And get a haircut. You look like a homeless person," she added, taking another sip of water. "Monica," I said, my voice low. "He looks fine. He finished a drawing today. It's really good. You should see it." Monica waved a hand dismissively. "I have a migraine, Johnny. I can't deal with scribbles right now. I need to lie down." She pushed off the counter and walked out of the room. We heard her heels clicking up the stairs, then the heavy thud of the bedroom door closing. The lock clicked. The silence returned, but now it was painful. Ethan looked at his lap. "I'm not hungry either, Dad." "Ethan, you have to eat," I pleaded. "I'm just going to go to my room," he said. Sliding off the stool, he took his sketchbook and walked away, his shoulders slumped. I stood alone in the kitchen of the 4-bedroom, 3-bathhouse I had designed and paid for. The stir-fry sizzled in the pan, smelling delicious, but I turned the burner off. I scraped the food, $70 worth of organic ingredients, into the trash. I poured myself a glass of tap water and stared out the window into the backyard. I could see the old oak tree in the twilight. Ethan was right. It looked lonely. I knew then, with a clarity that hurt my chest, that this couldn't go on. But I was the silent type, the provider, the fixer. I thought if I just worked harder, landscaped the garden better, bought her the nicer car, she would eventually be happy. I was a fool. 3 days later, on a Saturday morning, the axe fell. The weather was mocking us, a perfect, sunny spring day. I was out on the patio drinking black coffee and reading the specs for a new commercial park project downtown. It was a big contract, one that would secure my retirement if I played it right. The sliding glass door opened. Monica stepped out. She was wearing her serious face. She had a folder in her hand. She didn't sit down. She stood on the other side of the patio table, blocking the sun. "Johnny, put the paper down," she said. I folded the blueprints and placed them on the table. I took a sip of coffee. "Good morning to you, too. I want a divorce." She said it with the same tone she used when ordering a latte. Efficient, direct, and expecting no resistance. I didn't drop my cup. I didn't gasp. In a way, I had been waiting for this sentence for 5 years. The relief was instantaneous, followed immediately by terror. "Okay," I said. She blinked. She had expected a fight. She had expected me to beg, to promise to change, to offer therapy. My acceptance threw her off script for a second. "Okay," she repeated, her eyes narrowing. "Just okay. We haven't been happy, Monica. I'm not blind." She recovered quickly, smoothing her silk blouse. She sat down then, opening the folder. "Well, I'm glad you're being sensible. I've already spoken to a lawyer. Mr. Sterling." I knew the name. Everyone in the city knew the name. Sterling was a shark. He was the guy you hired when you wanted to scorch the earth. He didn't just win divorces, he destroyed the opposition. "Sterling," I said, looking at the folder. "That seems aggressive for a mutual split." "It's not aggressive, Johnny. It's protection. I gave you the best years of my life. I was 24 when I married you. You were 36. You were already established. I paused my career to run this house. Her career had been a 6-month stint as a receptionist at a yoga studio. Since then, her job had been spending my money. But I didn't say that. I just nodded. So, she continued, sliding a piece of paper across the table. "Here is what is going to happen. To keep things civil." I looked at the list. It was handwritten in her perfect loopy calligraphy. 1. The house of primary residence. 2. The lake cottage. 3. The 2024 Mercedes SUV. 4. 70% of the joint savings account. 5. 500 monthly alimony for 10 years. I read the list twice. My heart was hammering against my ribs, but I kept my face stone cold. It was a skill I learned in business negotiations. Never let them see you bleed. "You want the house?" I asked. "Monica, this house is 4,000 square feet. The property tax alone is 20 grand a year. The maintenance on the landscaping, which I do myself, costs thousands. How do you plan to afford the upkeep?" "That's what the alimony is for," she said smugly. "I need stability, Johnny. I need to maintain my standard of living. The law says so." "And the lake cottage, you hate the lake. You say the mosquitoes eat you alive."
"It's an asset,"
She shrugged. "I can sell it, or rent it out." "That's not your concern." She wanted everything. She wanted to strip me down to the studs. She wanted to leave me with my truck and my drafting table. I looked at her, really looked at her. I saw the greed in her eyes, masking a deep, cavernous insecurity. She thought these things. The bricks, the mortar, the leather seats, would make her feel whole. "And what about the business?" I asked. "Sterling says we can't touch the business because it's your sole income source for the alimony." She said, waving a hand. "So you keep your little dirt digging company. I don't want it." She didn't want the one thing that actually required work. Typical. I looked at the list again. I noticed something missing, something huge. "Monica," I said, pointing to the paper, "this list is just stuff. Where is Ethan?" She froze, just for a split second, but I saw it. She shifted in her chair, crossing her legs, looking away toward the fence line. "That's complicated," she said. "How is it complicated? He's our son. Custody is usually the first thing on the list." She took a deep breath and turned back to me. Her expression had changed. It wasn't the shark like greed anymore. It was something colder. It was indifference. "That's what we need to discuss next," she said. The birds were chirping loudly in the feeder I had built. A cardinal landed, bright red against the green foliage. It was a beautiful world, utterly indifferent to the fact that my life was being dismantled on a patio table. "Discuss what, Monica?" I asked. I leaned forward. "What about Ethan?" She picked at a loose thread on her sleeve. "Look, Johnny, I'm going to be starting over. Fresh. I'm 44. I'm still young enough to meet someone, to travel, to live the life I missed out on because I was playing house. Okay, I said slowly. Ethan he's difficult, she said. He's 14, I snapped. He's not difficult. He's a teenager. He's a good kid. He's an artist.
He's depressing Johnny,
She burst out, her voice rising. He mopes around. He's weird. He doesn't fit in with my friends' kids. He's socially awkward. And frankly, he requires a lot of emotional energy that I just don't have right now. I stared at her. I felt a coldness spread through my veins that had nothing to do with the morning air. It was the chill of absolute realization. She didn't love him. I mean, she probably loved him in the biological, obligatory way, but she didn't like him. She viewed him as an accessory that had gone out of style. A piece of luggage that was too heavy to carry on her new journey. So what are you saying? I asked. My voice was dangerously quiet. I'm saying, she said, regaining her composure, that if I'm going to take the house and manage the assets, I won't have the time to supervise a teenager. And you're always so connected with him. You understand his weird art stuff. She paused, then delivered the blow. I think it's best if you have full custody. I'll take the house, the cottage, and the savings. You take Ethan. I'll waive child support from you, obviously. And I'll take, let's say, every other weekend visitation. But we can be flexible. If I'm busy, we can skip. The world stopped spinning. She was trading her son. She was literally bartering her child for real estate. She was betting that I loved Ethan enough to give her the money in exchange for him. And she was right. A fury began to rise in me, a hot, white rage that wanted to flip the table and scream at her. How dare she? How dare she discard a human being, her own flesh and blood, like he was a used car? But then I looked at the sliding glass door. Ethan was standing there inside the living room. He was behind the sheer curtain, but I could see his outline. He was listening. He had heard everything. My heart broke. But in that heartbreak, the rage solidified into something else. Something harder. Something like steel. If she wanted to play a transactional game, I would play it. But she didn't realize who she was dealing with. She saw a tired old landscape gardener. She forgot that I was a man who understood how to lay foundations, how to divert water, and how to wait for seasons to change. She wanted the assets. Fine, she could have them. But she was forgetting that assets come with liabilities. And she was forgetting that Ethan wasn't a burden, he was the prize. I looked at Monica. I kept my face blank. So, let me get this straight, I said, my voice steady. You get the house, the cottage, the car, and 70% of the cash. I get full physical and legal custody of Ethan. You pay 0 child support. And I walk away with just my business and my truck. And your personal items, she added quickly. I don't want your dusty books or that old recliner. I pretended to think about it. I rubbed my chin. I looked at the garden. That's a heavy financial hit for me, Monica. I lied. Starting over at 56 with a teenager and no equity. You can handle it, she said, her eyes gleaming because she thought she had won. You're a survivor, Johnny. Besides, it's what's best for Ethan, isn't it? She used my love for him as a weapon. Okay, I said. Okay. She looked stunned again. I agreed to the terms in principle. But I want it drafted by Sterling immediately. And I want a specific clause that states the custody arrangement is permanent and irrevocable. You can't come back later and ask for him when things change. They won't change, she scoffed.
I want my freedom. Fine. Draw it up.
She smiled. It was a predatory, victorious smile. She stood up and reached for the folder. I knew you'd be reasonable. I'll call Sterling on Monday. She walked back inside, sliding the door open. She didn't even look at the spot where Ethan had been hiding behind the curtain. I sat alone on the patio. I knew I had just agreed to financial ruin. I was giving away millions in assets. But I also knew something Monica didn't. I knew the housing market was turning. I knew the roof on the big house was 5 years past its warranty. I knew the cottage had a septic issue that was going to cost $50,000 to fix. And I knew that without my income, the property taxes on that house would eat her alive within 24 months. She wanted the kingdom. She could have it. I was taking the hair. And when the walls started crumbling around her, I wouldn't be there to patch the cracks. Mr. Sterling's office was designed to make you feel small. It was on the 42nd floor of the downtown Distinct, encased in glass so clear it felt like you were stepping out into thin air. The furniture was all chrome and black leather, cold to the touch. I sat in a chair that was intentionally positioned 3 inches lower than the massive mahogany desk across from me. It was an old psychological trick. Keep the opposition looking up, literally. Monica sat next to Mr. Sterling. She was wearing a new dress, something sharp and white. She looked like a bride preparing for a second wedding to a pile of money. Sterling didn't shake my hand when I walked in. He just gestured to the low chair. He was a man in his late 50s, tanned to the point of leather, with teeth that were impossibly white. Mr. Davis. Sterling began, his voice smooth like oiled gravel. I'm glad we could meet amicably. Monica tells me you're a practical man. I try to be, I said, resting my hands on my knees. I had worn my work clothes, a clean flannel shirt and jeans. I could see Sterling eyeing the denim with disdain. He thought I was a simple laborer. He didn't know that my labor involved calculating load, bearing retaining walls, and managing $1 million commercial contracts. Good, Sterling said, opening a thick binder. Then let's not waste billable hours. We have drawn up the settlement agreement based on Monica's generous proposal. He slid a document across the desk. It was heavy. To summarize, Sterling said, leaning back and tenting his fingers. Monica retains the marital home at 42 Oak Drive. She retains the vacation property at Lake Oconee. She retains the 20D4 Mercedes GLE. She receives a lump sum transfer of $350,000 from the joint investment accounts, leaving the remainder, approximately $80,000, to you. He paused to let the numbers sink in. It was a slaughter, a financial execution. Furthermore, he continued, a smirk playing on his lips, you will pay spousal support in the amount of $4,500 per month for a duration of 10 years. This is non-negotiable, given the disparity in earning potential. Monica has been out of the workforce for 2 decades, supporting your career. I picked up the document. I flipped through the pages. I saw the list of assets. It was exactly as she demanded. She was gutting me. And the boy? I asked, not looking up. Sterling cleared his throat. He glanced at Monica. Ah, yes, the minor child, Ethan. As discussed, Monica feels that given your close bond and her need to focus on re-entering the workforce, full physical and legal custody will be granted to you. He said it like he was doing me a favor, like he was letting me keep a stray dog. Monica will have visitation rights on alternating weekends. Sterling added. However, she has requested that this schedule be flexible to accommodate her social calendar, meaning she shows up when she wants and doesn't when she doesn't. I translated. We prefer the term adaptive parenting. Sterling smiled thinly. Also, in exchange for waiving her rights to the business assets, you will agree to waive any and all claims for child support from Monica. She pays 0. I looked at Monica. She was studying her fingernails, avoiding my gaze. She was vibrating with excitement. She was doing the math in her head. The house worth 1.2 the cottage worth 600 kev, the cash a 350k din and 54k year in alimony. She thought she was set for life. She didn't understand what she was buying. I knew the house better than anyone. I designed the landscape. I knew the HVAC system was 20 years old and on its last legs. I knew the slate roof needed specialized maintenance that cost $5,000 every 2 years. I knew the property taxes had just been reassessed and were jumping to $22,000 next year. And the cottage. The cottage was a money pit. The retaining wall by the lake was failing. I had been planning to fix it myself that summer. A job that would cost a contractor $40,000. Without me, that wall would collapse into the lake within 2 winters, taking the value of the property down with it. She was acquiring assets, yes. But she was acquiring massive, depreciating liabilities without the income to support them. I have a condition, I said softly. Sterling's eyes narrowed. We aren't here to negotiate, Mr. Davis. This is a take it or leave it offer. If you refuse, we go to court, and I will make sure we go after your business valuation too. I'm not refusing, I said. I'm accepting. But I want a specific clause added regarding the liabilities. What clause? Monica snapped, speaking for the first time. I want a total separation of liability clause. I said, using a term I'd read in my own contract law books years ago. If I sign over the deeds to the house and the cottage, I want it in writing that from the moment of signing, I am responsible for 0 repairs, 0 taxes, and 0 debts associated with those properties. If the roof caves in tomorrow, it's yours. If the tax man comes, he comes for you. I want my name off everything, completely. Monica laughed. Fine. I don't need you to fix a light bulb, Johnny. I can hire people. Better people. Sterling looked at me with a mixture of suspicion and pity. He thought I was cutting my losses to run away. He didn't realize I was severing the anchor before the ship sank. Draft it. Sterling said to his paralegal. Full transfer of liability. He walks away clean. She takes the assets and the encumbrances. And the custody, I added. Sole custody to me. Irrevocable. Don't, Sterling said. I picked up the heavy, expensive pen from Sterling's desk. My hand hovered over the signature line. This was my life's work. That house was my masterpiece. Giving it to her felt like cutting off a limb. But then I thought of Ethan's drawing. The tree that survived the lightning strike, I signed. The moving day was quiet. There were no fights, no screaming matches. Just the sound of packing tape ripping and boxes thudding. Monica watched from the patio drinking wine while I loaded my truck. She didn't lift a finger. She supervised. Make sure you don't take the silver set. She called out as I carried a box of books. That was a wedding gift from my aunt. It's in the pantry, Monica, I said, not breaking stride. Ethan was in his room, well, what used to be his room. He had packed his entire life into 4 boxes. His art supplies, his clothes, his few treasured books. He looked small standing in the middle of the empty room. Dad, he asked as I walked in, are we really leaving? Yeah, but we are. Is Mom coming to say goodbye? I looked out the window. Monica was on the phone, laughing loudly about a spa weekend she was booking to celebrate her freedom. She's busy right now, Ethan. But we'll see her eventually. I grabbed the last box. We walked down the stairs. I took one last look at the foyer. I had laid that stone floor myself, hand cutting each slate tile. I had built the crown molding. I had planted the Japanese maples in the front yard. I was leaving a piece of my soul in this house. But as we walked out the front door, the strangest feeling washed over me. It wasn't regret. It was lightness, the mortgage, not my problem anymore. The leaking skylight, not my problem. Monica's moods, not my problem. We climbed into my truck. It was a sturdy 10-year-old pickup. I started the engine. Ethan buckled his seatbelt and looked at the house one last time. Where are we going? He asked. I got us an apartment, I said. It's in the city, closer to your school. It's cozy. 2 bedrooms, above a bakery. A bakery. Ethan perked up.
Yeah.
The landlord says the whole place smells like fresh bread every morning at 4 a.m. Ethan smiled, a real smile. We drove away. I looked in the rearview mirror. Monica hadn't even come to the driveway. She was standing in the doorway, waving at the delivery truck pulling up with her new furniture. I reached into the glove compartment and pulled out the copy of the settlement agreement. I flipped to page 42. Article the liability waiver. Upon execution of this agreement, Monica Davis assumes sole and absolute financial responsibility for the properties located at 42 Oak Drive and 115 Lakeview Lane. John Davis is hereby released from any obligation to maintain, repair, insure, or tax said properties. Monica Davis acknowledges that she has inspected the properties and accepts them in as condition. I whispered to myself. I knew for a fact that the main water line to the house was made of polybutylene, a ticking time bomb that often burst after 25 years. The house was built 24 years ago. I turned onto the main road. Leaving the wealthy suburbs behind, I put my hand on Ethan's shoulder. We're going to be okay, kiddo, I said. Better than okay. The apartment was small. There was no denying that. It was 900 square feet, a shoebox compared to the mansion we had left. The living room was barely big enough for a sofa and a TV, but it was ours, and it was warm. It was November, 6 months after the divorce. Outside, the wind was howling, stripping the last leaves off the trees. Inside, the radiators were clanking cheerfully, and the smell of yeast and cinnamon drifted up from the bakery downstairs, just like the landlord promised. Ethan was sitting at the small kitchen table, doing homework, but he wasn't hunched over anymore. He had cut his hair, a cool modern style he picked out himself. He was wearing a hoodie covered in paint splatters. Dad, check this out, he said, turning his laptop around. I walked over, wiping grease off my hands. I had spent the day repairing a tractor for the business. What is it? I submitted that charcoal series to the City Youth Art Showcase.
I got in. My jaw dropped. Ethan! That's huge! That's the gallery downtown.
Yeah, he grinned, looking down at his shoes. They want to exhibit 3 pieces. The opening is next month. I wrapped him in a bear hug, lifting him out of the chair. He laughed, a sound I hadn't heard in years. In the big house, we whispered. In this apartment, we laughed. We ordered pizza to celebrate, cheap, greasy pepperoni pizza. We ate it sitting on the floor because we didn't have enough chairs yet. We watched a stupid action movie and cheered at the explosions. At 9:00 p.m., my phone buzzed. I looked at the screen. Monica. I hadn't spoken to her in 3 weeks. She had skipped her last 2 visitation weekends. The first time she said she had a gala. The second time she didn't even call. She just didn't show up. Ethan had waited by the door for an hour before taking his shoes off without a word. I silenced the phone. It buzzed again immediately. Then a text. PQP Atise Emir GNCY. I sighed and answered.
Hello, Monica. You!
She screamed. There was no preamble. She was shrieking.
Knew what, Monica? The furnace? The goddamn furnace exploded.
It's 20 degrees outside and the house is freezing.
There is soot everywhere, Johnny. On the white carpets. On the drapes.
That sounds terrible, I said calmly. You should call a technician.
I called one. They want $7,000 to replace the unit.
They said the heat exchanger is cracked and it's a carbon monoxide hazard, so they had to shut the whole system down. Well, you better pay them then. You don't want the pipes to burst.
I don't have $7,000 sitting around right now, she yelled. I spent the liquid cash on the redecorating and the trip to Cabo.
You have to come fix it. You know how to fix furnaces. I'm a landscape architect, Monica, not an HVAC tech. And besides, I'm not allowed. What do you mean you're not allowed? The liability waiver, I reminded her. Article V7. I am released from any obligation to repair. If I come over there and touch that furnace, I become liable if something goes wrong later. My lawyer was very clear. I can't touch that house. There was a silence on the line. A heavy,
seething silence.
You son of a bitch. She hissed.
You set me up. You knew it was old. I told you the house was expensive to maintain, Monica. You said you didn't need me to change a light bulb. You said you could hire better people. So go hire them. Johnny, please. Her voice cracked, shifting from anger to manipulation instantly. It's freezing. I'm wearing a coat in the kitchen. Just send me the money. Take it out of next month's alimony. I can't do that either, I said, my voice hardening. Alimony is automated through the court. I can't advance it. And frankly, I don't have extra cash. I'm paying rent on an apartment and funding a teenager's life.
I hate you,
she screamed. Stay warm, Monica, I said, and hung up. I looked at Ethan. He was watching me, a slice of pizza halfway to his mouth.
Mom, he asked.
Yeah, Furnace Bro, is she okay? She's cold. But she has a credit card. She'll be fine. Ethan nodded and took a bite of pizza. You know, I don't miss that house, he said quietly. It was always cold there anyway. I smiled. Yeah, it was. But I knew this was just the beginning. Winter had just started. And I knew for a fact that the heavy snow we were forecasted to get next week was going to be too much for the old gutters on the north side of the house. The ice dams were coming. Monica was about to learn that assets are only assets if you can afford to keep them. Otherwise, they are just anchors dragging you to the bottom. 18 months had passed since I signed the papers in Sterling's glass tower. Life in the apartment had developed a rhythm, a good one. The bakery downstairs, K Knit and Proof, had become our second living room. The owner, a sweet grandmother named Mrs. Gable, let Ethan sit in the corner booth for hours to sketch. She fed him old croissants and told him stories about the old neighborhood. Ethan was 15 now. He had shot up 3 inches, his voice had dropped, and the haunted look in his eyes was gone. He walked with his chin up. I was working harder than ever, but it was different. I wasn't working to pay for a Mercedes lease or a country club membership I never used. I was working for us. I was saving. My bank account, for the first time in a decade, was growing. One Tuesday afternoon my phone rang. I was on a job site supervising the installation of a koi pond. I wiped the dirt off the screen. Mr. Sterling. My stomach tightened. I hadn't heard that name in a year and a half. I answered. Mr. Davis. Sterling's voice was clipped, lacking the oily confidence it had back in his office. We need to schedule a meeting. I don't have a lawyer anymore, Sterling. The divorce is finalized, unless you're calling to buy some landscaping. This concerns the minor child, Ethan, Sterling said, and a modification of the custody agreement. The agreement is irrevocable. I said, my hand gripping the shovel. You wrote it yourself. Circumstances have changed, Sterling said. My client, Ms. Davis, feels that she has been excluded from her son's recent success. She believes there is a case for parental alienation. Success, that was the key word. 2 weeks ago, Ethan had won the state junior arts grant. It came with a 10 Savorzellard scholarship and a feature in the Sunday newspaper. There was a photo of Ethan and me standing in front of his winning charcoal drawing, grinning like idiots. Monica hadn't called to congratulate him. She hadn't liked the post on social media. But now that there was money involved, now that Ethan was a winner, she wanted back in. She wants a meeting, I asked. She insists on it. Fine, I said. Friday, 4 p.m. But not at your office. We'll meet at the coffee shop on Main. Neutral ground. I hung up and looked at the koi pond. The water was murky, but the filter system I'd just installed was already working. You could see the clear water beginning to cycle through, pushing the muck out. I went home and told Ethan. He was sitting at the kitchen table, sketching a comic strip. He stopped when I told him Mom wanted to talk about custody. He didn't cry. He didn't panic. He just put his pencil down and looked at me. Does she need money? He asked. The maturity in his voice broke my heart. He knew her better than I did. I don't know, Bud. Probably. Can I come? He asked. You don't have to. I want to, he said firmly. I'm not a kid anymore, Dad. I want to hear what she says. I nodded. Okay. We do this together. The coffee shop was busy. The smell of roasted beans and rain filled the air. We sat in a booth near the back. Monica walked in 10 minutes late. She looked different. The polished veneer was cracking. Her hair was pulled back in a tight bun, but the roots were showing gray. Her designer coat looked tired, slightly frayed at the cuffs, but it was her eyes that told the story. They were darting around the room, anxious, checking to see who was watching. She sat down without ordering anything. She looked at Ethan, then at me.
He looks thin,
she said to me. He's growing. I said, he grew 3 inches. Hi, Mom, Ethan said quietly. She offered him a tight, strained smile. Ethan, I saw the paper. The prize, that's wonderful. Thanks. I was thinking, she said, leaning forward, her hands clasping a purse that looked empty. That scholarship money. We should put it in a trust. I can manage it for you. To make sure it grows. I almost laughed. I took a sip of my black coffee. The money is already in a 529 college savings plan. Monica, I set it up the day the check cleared. It's locked until he's 18. Her face fell. The mask slipped for a second, revealing pure desperation. Well, she cleared her throat. That's not why I'm here. Johnny, this arrangement isn't working. I'm his mother. I have rights. I want 50-50 custody back. I want him at the house half the time. Why? I asked. You haven't used your visitation weekends in 6 months. Because he needs a stable home, she snapped, her voice rising. Not some apartment above a bakery. He needs the house! He needs his room. I looked at her steadily. How is the house, Monica? She flinched. It's fine, she lied. Is it? I pulled a piece of paper from my pocket. It wasn't a legal document. It was a printout from the county tax assessor's website, because according to public record, you're 2 years behind on property taxes. There's a lion on the house, and I drove by yesterday. The roof tiles on the west wing are missing. There's a blue tarp up there. She went pale. It's temporary, she whispered. Cash flow is just tight. The alimony isn't enough, Johnny. You know it's not enough with inflation. It was enough when you did the math in Sterling's office? I said. You wanted the assets. You got them. I can't sell it, she hissed, tears forming in her eyes. The market dipped, and with the roof the offers are insulting. I'm underwater, Johnny. I'm going to lose it. She reached across the table, grabbing my hand. Her grip was cold. Johnny, please? Come back. Just move back in. Fix the roof. Pay the tax lien. We can be a family again. Look at us. We were good together once. I looked at her hand. I remembered the day I put the wedding ring on that finger. I remembered how much I loved her. But then I looked at Ethan. He was watching me, holding his breath. He was terrified that I would say yes. Terrified that we would go back to the cold, silent mansion where he was a burden. I gently pulled my hand away from hers. No, I said. The word hung in the air, simple, absolute no. She gasped. I'm happy, Monica. For the first time in 20 years, I sleep through the night. I like my small apartment. I like cooking dinner with my son. I'm not coming back to fix your mistakes.
But the house,
she sobbed.
It's your masterpiece.
You built the garden.
It's just a house,
I said. It's just wood and stone. My home is right here. I pointed to Ethan. Monica looked at Ethan. She switched tactics. She looked at him with pleading eyes. Ethan, baby, tell him. Don't you want to come home? Don't want your big room back. Mom misses you. Ethan took a deep breath. He looked his mother in the eye, really looked at her, and for the first time he didn't look like a child seeking approval. He looked like a young man. Mom, he said softly, you traded me. You traded me for the house. You can't trade back just because the roof is leaking. Monica recoiled as if he had slapped her. She sat back in the booth, her mouth opening and closing. The truth, spoken so plainly by the boy she had underestimated, shattered her defense. She stood up. She gathered her purse. She tried to regain some dignity, but she was shaking. Fine, she spat. Rot in your bakery, both of you. She turned and walked out of the coffee shop. I watched her go. I watched her get into the Mercedes, which I noticed had a dent in the bumper and hadn't been washed in months. She drove away. I looked at Ethan. He let out a long, shaky breath and picked up his sketchbook. You okay? I asked. Yeah, he said. He picked up a fry from my plate.
I'm okay. Can we go, Mrs.
Gable said she saved me a chocolate croissant. Let's go home, I said. EPLGU 6 months later, the house was foreclosed on. The bank sold it at auction for a fraction of what it was worth. I heard a developer bought it. They bulldozed the garden I had spent 10 years planting to put in a swimming pool. It didn't hurt, because by then Ethan and I had bought a small plot of land outside the city. Just 3 acres. It had an old barn on it. Every weekend we went out there. I was teaching Ethan how to frame a wall. He was designing the layout. We were building a cabin. Small, simple, strong. We were building a home, more or less, son. The breakdown, ladies and gentlemen. What we just witnessed is a classic case of the asset trap. Monica made a fatal error that so many people make in relationships and in life. She valued the appearance of wealth over the source of wealth. The villain's psychology, Monica was a narcissist. She viewed Johnny and Ethan not as people, but as appliances. Johnny was the ATM. Ethan was the accessory. When she divorced Johnny, she thought she was cashing out. She wanted the house as the trophy, but rejected the maintenance of the work. She wanted the child's success, the status, but rejected the parenting of the effort. She didn't understand that a house without love is just a pile of bricks that costs money. The hero's strategy. Johnny played the long game. He didn't fight her screaming. He fought her with silence and contracts. He accepted reality. He knew the marriage was over. He identified the true value. He realized Ethan was the only thing that mattered. He let her win the wrong prize. He let her take the liabilities, the house, because he knew she couldn't sustain them. He utilized the poison pill strategy, giving an enemy an asset that will eventually bankrupt them. The moral of the story: be careful what you trade for your freedom. Monica traded her family for a mansion, only to lose the mansion because she didn't have the family to help her keep it. Johnny walked away with nothing but his son and ended up with everything. Question for you: if you were Johnny, would you have helped Monica when the furnace broke? Or did she deserve the cold?
Let me know in the comments below.